Der 15 Zentimeter schweres Infanteriegeschütz 33 auf Fahrgestell Panzerkampfwagen 2, or the Sturmpanzer 2 as it is more commonly known, is a rank 1 battle rating 1.0 German HE slinger that has a tendency to be spotted at top tier because smacking in on Abrams tanks with large caliber high explosive rounds has never been funnier. I've been playing a lot of this tank lately because I decided that aiming is for nerds and that bonking BT5s is a great pastime. Anyway, I have decided to do a deep dive into this vehicle due to my innate need to express my opinion on everything in this godforsaken game. This video will have a slightly different format to my other deep dives. A link to a playlist containing them can be found in the description, due to this video being about both arcade and realistic ground battles. So without any further waffle, let's get right into it. Starting out with the stats, they are not very impressive. There are exactly 4 good things about this tank. A big funny gun, 40 degrees of gun elevation, a top speed of 45 km per hour in realistic battles and 49 km per hour in arcade, and a visibility rating of 69%. Very nice. And now the negatives. The Sturmpanzer 2 has pretty much no useful armor at all. The thickest part is 20mm thick and is on the very front of the hull, protecting the transmission. Every other part of the tank is protected by 14.5mm of rolled homogeneous armor. And just like that, I've saved 5 minutes by not listing the angles and thicknesses of every single armor plate on the tank. While the Sturmpanzer has an impressive 40 degrees of elevation, it only has negative 4 degrees of gun depression, making playing hull down very difficult. Additionally, getting to good positions is hard due to the low power to weight ratio of 8.62 to 1 stock and 9.75 to 1 spaded in RB, and 13.84 to 1 stock and 18.62 to 1 spaded in arcade. This vehicle also has a very long reload, 14.43 seconds on a stock crew and 11.1 seconds on an aced crew. While this is quite short for a derp gun, it is considerably longer than the average of about 3.5 seconds that the vehicles the Sturmpanzer often faces have. This is compounded by the turret only being able to traverse 1 degree to the left and just 6 degrees to the right, making getting swarmed very easy. Although if you do hit a shot on an enemy tank, the results are spectacular, bringing me onto the armament of the Sturmpanzer. The tank is armed with a 15 cm schweres Infanteriegeschütz 33, abbreviated to 15 cm SIG 33. This is a heavy infantry gun designed in the late 1920s through the early 30s and was used by the Wehrmacht in the Second World War. On the Sturmpanzer 2, it is able to elevate between negative 4 degrees and plus 40 degrees at a rate of 2.8 degrees per second on a stock crew and 4 degrees per second spaded and on an aced crew. The cannon can traverse between 1 degree to the left and 6 degrees to the right, at a rate of 4.2 degrees per second and 6 degrees per second on a stock and aced crew respectively, and can dispense 1 hardened serving of sauerkraut every 14.43 seconds with amateur chefs, and every 11.1 seconds with Gordon Ramsay himself making the sauerkraut. One thing to bear in mind is that the Sturmpanzer has no machine guns. This makes engaging Russian milk trucks very difficult, especially if you are reloading. Anyways, in terms of the flavor of said dispensed sauerkraut, let's talk about ammo. This choice is very simple due to the Sturmpanzer only getting 2 shells, a high explosive round with 8.6 kilograms of TNT, or a heat round with 5.32 kilograms of TNT equivalent filler. The HE round can get through 61mm of rolled homogeneous armor at all angles and ranges and has a muzzle velocity of 240 meters per second, while the heat rounds can get through a maximum of 185mm of RHA and has a muzzle velocity of 280 meters per second. Both shells have advantages and disadvantages. The HE shell is slower and can pen less armor, but if it does pen, the entire enemy tank is most likely dead because of overpressure. On the other hand, a successful penetration by the heat shell doesn't guarantee a one-shot, but does guarantee at least some damage. This is most useful if you are taking the Sturmpanzer up to the 6.7 to 8.7 BR range, where you will run into a lot of heavy tanks, which the HE round can struggle against if improperly aimed, while the heat shell can at least do some damage. Whichever one you use is up to personal preference, but I prefer the HE round because there is just something about seeing 8.5 kilos of TNT send a tank into the stratosphere, and it is much more consistent when overpressuring vehicles. Speaking of getting hit by shells, let's discuss survivability. As you can see from the meme in the top right corner, there is no survivability. And no, I'm not paying to remove that watermark. The only positive in terms of survivability is that the armor is so thin that some large caliber APHE shells won't have their fuses triggered by penetrating. However, low caliber APHE rounds will be triggered, so this doesn't really make a difference. But the cons don't stop there. The armor is so thin, in fact, that the Sturmpanzer can easily be killed by 50 caliber rounds from any direction, and since it is an open-top vehicle, it can be overpressured by any tank with an HE round and a working finger to click. Even the German tech tree player base is capable of that. Not only can every HE projectile send the Sturmpanzer back to the hangar faster than a Wehraboo trying to turnfight a Spitfire in his Focke-Wulf 190, but aircraft can do the same since all the crew are exposed to the air. This also makes the tank deathly allergic to artillery. Oh, and did I forget to mention that the first stage ammo is in a big box above the engine? 'Cause it is, and it loves to explode. And finally, look at the thing. Of course it isn't survivable. If you want survivability, play the mouse or something. A deep dive to which can be found by the iCard on screen now. Anyway, let's discuss modifications before I go on another 10-minute rant. As with most vehicles, parts and FPE come first in that order, although this won't do much to prevent you from dying at every opportunity. After that, get track so you can turn the hull a bit quicker, which makes engaging enemies much easier due to the very poor traverse angles. Then pick up adjustment of fire to make the sauerkraut launcher launch sauerkraut servings more accurately. Researching crew replenishment should be next, as playing any derp gun on 2 crew or without a loader is extremely painful. The rest of the mods are up to personal preference. Luckily, the Sturmpanzer 2 is 1.0, so these mods are very cheap, which brings me on to the economy of this vehicle. The Sturmpanzer 2 can be bought for just 2,100 Silver Lions, or SL. It costs an additional 2,650 SL to purchase all modifications, hence spading the vehicle. The repair costs differ a bit between RB and AB. In RB it varies between 280 SL stock and 346 spaded, while in arcade it varies between 220 SL and 272 SL. Training crews is also very cheap, costing only 600 SL to train a crew initially, and just 2100 SL to expert it. An aced crew can be bought for just 80 Golden Eagles or GE. A talisman for this vehicle can be bought for 300 GE, although unlike the ace crew I wouldn't recommend getting one, as low tier vehicles are researched quite quickly even without a premium account active. And the Sturmpanzer 2 loses research effectiveness after rank 2, so there really isn't any reason to put a talisman on this vehicle. On the subject of researching vehicles, the Sturmpanzer requires just 4000 RP to research and 4450 to spade, in addition to the 2650 SL. If you don't want to spend the 80 Golden Eagles required to ace the crew, then you can grind out a free one for the low price of 110,000 RP. Yeah, not great. Again, the economy of War Thunder deserves a video entirely dedicated to itself, so I won't go into that here. If you do want to see one, just let me know in the comments. The Sturmpanzer 2 also has some quirks that you do need to be aware of when playing it. Starting off with RB. Firstly, the gun has enough recoil to knock the vehicle back a few meters when firing, so watch out for this when shooting from a hill. I've been knocked off many times, and due to the power to weight ratio, there is little chance of stopping yourself sliding down it. Due to the lackluster engine performance, the tank doesn't accelerate very quickly, making the practical top speed achievable lower than the theoretical maximum. Speaking of slow, sluggish things, the shells this thing gets are very slow. This is both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, you can bino snipe over hills easily, but on the other hand, hitting moving targets at range is very difficult. The first stage ammo rack is a gigantic box right above the engine deck, which is very easy to hit and blow up, demonstrating what I like to call the vertical combat escape maneuver. Also, the crew in this tank apparently all collectively forgot their EpiPens for their artillery allergy, so watch out for it lest you want to be sent back to the respawn screen. Due to the poor turret traverse angles, you pretty much have to point the hull directly towards the enemy you want to shoot. Because of this and the underpowered engine, the reactive mobility is not fantastic for this vehicle, which makes engaging multiple enemies from multiple directions very hard if said enemies have even a few brain cells, which is common since this vehicle fights everyone except Germany and RB, unlike an AB, where it fights all nations, including Germany. The vehicle has a few more quirks in AB than in RB. For starters, sniping over hills is much easier thanks to the instant rangefinder mechanic that Arcade has, as well as tank markers, and most importantly, the armor penetration reticle that will light up when your shell will hit a vehicle. In Arcade, the mobility of the Sturmpanzer is improved considerably, allowing better positions to be taken and much faster. Also, mistakes made while playing the vehicle are punished a lot less in Arcade at 1.0, since this is the game mode and BR with the most new players in it, which brings me on to some gameplay advice. As with all vehicles in War Thunder, positioning is key, especially in RB, which I will discuss first. Playing the Sturmpanzer 2 as an ambush tank works quite well. By that I mean hiding behind a corner and shooting an enemy in the side as they come around said corner. It can also be used as a sniper tank by sitting behind a hill and bino sniping over it, although this is only effective up to mid-range and only against stationary targets. At longer ranges, moving targets should be avoided due to the low velocity of the shells, although stationary targets can be engaged as long as you are confident in your range-finding abilities, because if you miss, that tank won't be stationary any longer. Having a 150mm high explosive shell land right next to your tank is a pretty strong signal to any tanker that they should move. In the event they remain stationary for some reason, send a follow-up shot their way and pray this one hits. To reduce the time between follow-up shots, I would recommend investing in an aced crew. It really does help reduce the reload time and reduces the time an enemy has to react to a missed shot before another one is flying their way. Playing the Sturmpanzer 2 in arcade battles is a bit different to realistic battles. In arcades, you can't really play it as an ambush tank because of player markers giving your location away. Instead, playing it as a sniper tank is much more effective due to the said aiming reticle lighting up when you are aiming at an enemy vehicle. Playing aggressively can also sometimes work due to the increased top speed and higher power to weight ratio, allowing you to take positions that the opponents don't always expect even with markers on. This allows you to get a few surprise kills before repositioning. On the subject of getting kills, remember that to get one, all you need to do is hit an enemy with a high explosive shell pretty much anywhere. This strategy works up to pretty much 4.7, after which you will need to start aiming for weak spots. Killing tanks is made much easier in arcade as enemies will be outlined in red when your shell is going to hit them. All you have to do is then click, which people who play Germany seem to be very good at, especially at low tier. Hitting moving targets is also made harder because the opponent's vehicles are faster in arcade, so again focus on stationary targets to shoot at. So, in conclusion, the Sturmpanzer 2 is very fun to play both at its BR and above it. Its stats are not good to say the least, and the survivability can best be described as non-existent. The only thing it has going for it is the big bonk cannon from the 1930s, which can one-shot every vehicle in the game if aimed correctly. I would recommend playing it in ground arcade battles due to the aiming reticle, which makes hitting shots trivial at most ranges, although taking it up to top tier in RB is also pretty fun. Anyway, I'd like to close out this video with a quick channel update. A list of sources are on the left, as you can see. First of all, thank you guys so much for the attention my rant video got. I might do a presentation style video on top tier or drones later, depending on the level of free time that I have, which currently isn't great because of uni things. If you do want me to make a video on a certain topic, please do let me know in the comments. Speaking of those, thank you for all the comments wishing me good health. I have recovered now and will get back to regular uploads soon. The promised Discord server is still in the works, and it'll be done when it's done. I do need to still sort out banner and profile picture art before I finally release said Discord server to the public, which should be done hopefully sometime soon. Oh yeah, one other thing. If you are getting ads before watching my videos, I don't actually make any money on those, because I don't have 1,000 subscribers yet, which is the threshold for monetization. So please subscribe. I like money. Anyway. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And, as always, stay salty, my lemons.